The topic that we're going to cover here today is how to pay for long-term care at its core. That's what we're here to talk about. And this is an issue that really faces virtually every family in America or every family in the world. The facts are over 70% of Americans over the age of 65 will require some form of long-term care. And I just pose this question: are you prepared? Are your parents prepared? Are your grandparents prepared? Mike, I think you like this quote from Mark Twain. Do not.
I do. Don't put off until tomorrow what can be put off till the day after tomorrow just as well. You know, the truth, Mark Twain just had the truth in his hands.
Yeah.
Is it your motto?
Or another way of putting this is your head in the sand when it comes to dealing with long-term care. This issue that's going to face, that virtually all of us are going to face, whether it's us or a family member or a loved one. So let's go through what we're going to talk about here today in this really important discussion.
Sure. Yeah, let me do that. So we have a lot to cover. We don't have exhaustive depth on all of these issues because they're so complicated, but we're going to certainly talk about quality of care in a long-term care setting. How do you pay for different levels of care, different kinds of care? What role do family members play? And there's some interesting things you may not have known about. What about Medi-Cal? Medi-Cal is the program that can help pay for the cost of long-term care in some settings. How do you protect assets and become eligible for these programs? And how do you integrate all of these things? So long-term care, insurance, integrating legal and financial planning. Mm-hmm. All of these things obviously are interrelated, and we need to just be conscious of that as we go forward. So an aggressive agenda for the day will cover all of these points for you.
And we'll try to get to some questions at the end if we can. We won't be able to get to really any during the talk. Feel free to submit via the Q&A function if you're watching this live. We do want to point out this is an educational webinar. It's not meant to provide legal advice. We can only do that if we really meet with you and get to know you. So this is really just intended to arm you and to give you the power of knowledge. You can understand these issues. And for those of you who don't know us, I think many of you do, but for those of you who don't know us, I think it's important to know who we are and where we come from. So just about our firm, Gilfix and the Pole Associates, we're based in Palo Alto, but we are really proud of our heritage. Really, it's Mike and my mom, Myra Gerson Gilfix, and Francis LaPole, who really built the firm from the ground up. Over 38 years in the Bay Area, we've served thousands of families throughout California, all the way from San Diego to Wairika, especially now with Zoom. We serve people all over the state. And it's our goal to provide extraordinary value and peace of mind about your future, your children's future. We're very proud of where we've been featured, the publishing we've done. We've been in the national media many times, and we really like to spread the word and educate people. Because if you don't know, how can you take action? And just on this subject in particular, we've done a lot of thinking about long-term care. Mike and I co-authored a book, Facing the Reality of Long-Term Care. We're probably about to do some updates to that book. It's been a little bit, but it's still very much on point. It's available to all of our clients. It's available at our office. And we've written a lot of articles about this. We've written articles in Trust and Estates magazine and a couple others about integrated multi-generational planning to preserve assets and to protect mom and dad for great long-term care. And just more importantly, we work with thousands of families on this issue. So we've heard every type of situation, and this is something we spend a lot of time thinking about.
And let's be clear, by the way, it isn't available only to our clients. Right. It just means if you're a client, we give it to you for free.
Yeah.
It is available through our office or on Amazon, so it is available for purchase as well.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So, Mike, why don't you talk? This was a pretty stark headline.
This surprised many people. This was an article from the Wall Street Journal about a month or two ago. AARP's expert on long-term care took care of her parents and went bankrupt. She didn't get basic advice. I mean, on the one hand, you say it's astonishing, it's incredible. You know, AARP is people, real people who make mistakes, who don't know everything. We live and breathe these issues. So did this surprise or shock me that this happened? You know, unfortunately, no, it didn't. The misinformation and the failure to just get information, it's endemic. It's a problem across the nation and virtually every context. But long-term care, tough issue. When you're dealing with it, it's emotional, it's draining, and it's hard. It's hard to just find a path that makes good sense. So got to be so careful. So quality of care. Okay. We're talking about how do you pay for it, but you don't just find a cheap approach. You have to make sure that quality of care is there, that your loved one, that you get the quality of care that you need and that you deserve. So I keep in mind, long-term care is a spectrum. It starts out at home. You might need a high level of care at home. If you want to stay at home, and many people say, I don't care what it costs, I want to stay at home as long as I live, the cost of private care can be enormous. We'll go through some of the resources that can pay for it, but you have to plan very, very carefully. And again, quality is something you have to keep an eye on very carefully. So what do you do? How do you kind of think this through, and what steps do you take? Acknowledge how hard it is. Private agencies and government programs have a shortage of quality caregivers. Wages are not great, especially through government programs. So logic says, market analysis says that some of the best people are not going to engage in this work, at least not until wages increase substantially. So whether your loved one is getting care at home, in assisted living, or particularly in a nursing home, you have to be there. You have to be involved. And the phrase at the bottom of this slide is something we have been saying for over 30 years, that the only guarantor of quality care in a long-term care setting is cookies and thorns. And what does that mean? That means you have to visit your loved one often, and when you do, you bring cookies or cake or something good for the staff so they know you, you're not anonymous, you're somebody a little bit special perhaps. Thorns, if you see anything going on in that facility that is not up to snuff, even if it's not your loved one, you call them on it. You're a gentle thorn on their side, because quality affects everybody. When you're there, you're watching, but you're not there all the time. So cookies and thorns, that's the core, that's the key.
And now let's dive into how to pay for this. And I think above all of this, we need to think about that quality issue and the importance of family members being involved whenever possible. We don't have the numbers up here. We probably should, but the cost of long-term care, it's a wide spectrum. It can be anywhere from a couple $1,000s a month up to literally $20,000 a month per person. We've seen that. That's a lot of money. How do you pay for this? How do you plan ahead for this? Well, one category is long-term care insurance. I think Mike can speak to this more than me because he's been in this industry longer than me, but I think our view of these types of policies has changed. I think early on we were skeptical of them. Over time, we've become okay with them. And there are some very solid long-term care insurance plans that can pay for the cost of long-term care, whether it's at home, in an assisted living facility, or in a nursing home. It can pay for a caregiver. Now, these policies are pretty expensive, and by the time you need care, it's too late to get that. Another category is hybrid life and long-term care insurance policy. So it's a version of long-term care, but a lot of people like the idea that, well, I hope I don't need long-term care and I don't want to feel like I've lost all that money. So at least with these policies, if you don't need long-term care, your family is going to get something back when you pass away if you don't need to use up that policy. Although I heard an expert make a good point that what type of insurance do you get that you actually want to use, right? Like, we don't want our insurance policies to have to be put to use, but hey, you don't want to lose money, but there's some wonderful ways to combine life and long-term care policies. There are government programs, and we're going to go into Medi-Cal a bit. The purpose of this program is not to go into depth into all the government programs. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's important to understand that there are some programs out there. Medi-Cal is probably the one that's top of mind for us. It can help pay for nursing home care. IHSS, in-home support services, VA benefits if you're a veteran, and there are a bunch of other smaller programs, but there aren't as many programs and there aren't as many benefits as you might think, but you got to be aware of them and you have to be ready to be eligible for them if and when the time comes. And then, of course, the other way to pay for this is just to self-insure. Make sure that you have a great integrated financial plan, ideally connected to these other tools, that can just pay for the cost of long-term care. If you have a good financial plan in place, if you're fortunate enough to have enough assets, you need to be aware of that and you need to plan for that. And we see a lot of financial plans that don't seem to take long-term care into account. So you really need to work with a team that understands that.
On that point, I mean, if you think about what a financial planner usually does, it's maximizing, the litany. Are they aware of this 70% needing long-term care? Are they even aware of that data? And if so, how do you fine-tune the nature of your investments to address that? It can be done, and yet most people, here we go, have their heads in the sand when it comes to that kind of thinking and planning. So, heads up.
And I think this is an important point. Mike, why don't you address this?
Yeah, it is. This is another Wall Street Journal article. This was within the past week. So
Yeah.
you're not the only ones interested in this issue and giving it attention. So this article makes the point that family members can be paid for providing caregiving services at home. Mark made reference to the IHSS program, in-home support services. You have to be eligible for Medi-Cal to obtain that. You have to have a high level of need, but you can be paid to be the caregiver, the spouse, the child. You might be doing the care anyway. So what if you could be paid 12 or 13 bucks an hour? I mean, that's great if you can do it. VA home care, there are respite care programs, a number of things available through the VA, not necessarily the easiest things to access, but they do exist. The process of obtaining them, like all, not necessarily simple, but it's there. It's a resource for you. Long-term care insurance, and we'll spend a couple of minutes on long-term care insurance in just a couple of minutes. But again, that can pay for caregiving at home in appropriate circumstances. Be creative.
And I think overlaying all of this, hey, we are estate planning and elder law attorneys. It is crucial that your estate plan is up to date, that not only does it name the right people, I mean, have you looked at your plan recently? Do you have the right people named in your trust, in your power of attorney, in your advance directive? These are the people who are going to have to step in to manage your affairs, manage your assets, coordinate your care if and when you need that help. Do you have the right people named? Have you talked to them about these issues? Are your documents up to date? You need an up-to-date living trust. You need an up-to-date and sophisticated durable power of attorney for day-to-day financial matters if you need help. It is crucial that you do not have just a check-the-box power of attorney form. We've seen some clients come in to work with us for the first time and they say, oh, I have a power of attorney, and it's a check-the-box form. That's fine for day-to-day bill paying and simple transactions. It does not address long-term care and asset protection issues. You need a comprehensive and coordinated plan. It needs to be updated every 3 to 5 years. One thing that if you have older documents and you have a power, and one of your loved ones is empowered in your power of attorney, they go to a financial institution to take steps for you. If it's more than 5 years old, some financial institutions won't accept it, or they'll make it much more difficult. So you don't want your plan to be stale. You want it to be up to date, and you need to make sure it addresses these issues. And we make sure that all the documents we prepare for our clients, if our clients understand and are okay with it, address these issues. And we'll talk about what some of those are in just a moment. But now let's talk about long-term care insurance. Mike, why don't you talk?
Sure. We alluded to this already. It's an option to consider. It is, let's be objective here. It's gotten more costly over the years. The industry didn't do a good job of looking to the future and how many claims they would have. So some companies went out of business. Some left the state of California in terms of selling long-term care insurance. So it is more expensive. And, frankly, we think it had to be, because the number of claims exceeded the expectations, and they exist to make money. Let's be, objective about that as well. So it's something to consider. Can you get it? Well, if you already have a serious diagnosis, no, they're not going to sell it to you. This hybrid policy is interesting. Long-term care insurance or life insurance, one or the other. You don't get as much life insurance if you're hedging your bets to get long-term care. But again, depending on your level of need, your financial situation, often they're the most attractive. Pros and cons for everything. You need to speak with someone. Again, Mark's the individual Mark is working with is someone who could do that. Just give you the pros and cons of the alternative approaches that can be taken. So a little bit more about insurance. Now, if you have a policy in existence, a life insurance policy, it is often a possibility to exchange that. It's called a 1035 exchange. Basically, you cash it in, you get a new policy that can be, if you wish, this hybrid. So you take your life insurance policy, if it has cash value, you use the cash value to purchase a hybrid policy. Many individuals have done that. And what we've noticed about it is it helps a lot of folks sleep at night. It's a policy you don't want to use. Neither of them, actually, long-term care or life, but sooner or later you're going to use one of the two of them. So, again, an option to consider. Pros and cons. Let's see if it's right for you. It might give you a great deal of peace of mind.
Yeah, but I think this is a crucial point, though. If you have an older life insurance policy, that is an asset that may be able to really help to pay the cost of long-term care. You need to talk to an expert. There's some experts we work with who specialize in this. So If you have an old policy they haven't looked at in years that has some cash value, talk to us about it. We can connect you with the right people. We already talked about self-insuring. So this says, hey, and this might be part of the other plan. You might still have long-term care insurance, but hope you never use it. You might still have life insurance. You might have other documents that empower your family to protect assets. But really, let's make sure that your financial plan, if you're fortunate enough to have assets you've been saving and investing, we got to make sure that that's up to date, that it addresses the potentially massive increases in long-term care costs over time. Inflation is at all-time highs or approaching record levels. So the costs that we've seen over the last few years are probably lower than the costs that we're going to see going forward. So what does this mean? Well, it means you really need to make sure that your financial plan addresses these issues, that you have the right types of investments and financial products, whatever that mix is, that really help you sleep at night. And we hope you're working with an advisor who really understands this and thinks about this with you, not just as simple as, hey, my goal is to retire by this age. Great. We all want to retire at whatever time we can, but does it address these potentially explosive costs? And we believe it's really important to work with an integrated team that coordinates estate and financial planning, whether it's your own planner talks to us or your estate planner. It shouldn't be two separate entities. There should be communication to make sure your documents, your assets are all linked, your estate plan, your financial plan. And we are developing some new programs around this. So if you are interested in integrated legal and financial planning, again, talk to us. We have some really exciting new programs that we're working on building, and we're starting to accept clients into them. But regardless, whether you work with us or not, you need to think about how these things fit together and make sure that your financial plan addresses long-term care. And if there's some missing pieces, well, that's where, hey, maybe it's time to really look at long-term care insurance. Maybe it's time to look at a hybrid policy. So now let's talk about government programs that are available. Mike, why don't you talk? This is not a comprehensive list. This is just
so again, we mentioned Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal, California's version of the federal Medicaid program. It can pay the cost of nursing home care. It's really the only program that can. We've mentioned IHSS, veterans programs. Let's take a closer look at Medi-Cal and Medicare and Medi-Cal for just a moment. Okay, very important to understand that Medicare does not pay the ongoing cost of nursing home care. We'll show that in just a moment. There we go. It can pay in theoretically up to 100 days, but I think in 40 some years, I've seen Medicare pay for nursing home care 100 days twice. After a couple of weeks or 20 days, it's a copay. The average number of days Medicare covers is 24 days. You have to come from a hospital to a nursing home. So frankly, you forget about Medicare as a source of paying for nursing home care. Just forget about it. It really is not an answer. It's Medi-Cal. That's the program if eligibility requirements are met. So what's going on with eligibility? How does all of that work? Are you eligible? Okay. It has been the case, and frankly, our book says that an individual can't qualify for Medi-Cal unless he or she has no more than $2,000 in countable assets. Now, formerly, so our book is a little bit out of date on this one point. Brand new law, brand new developments as of January 1, like July, just like a couple of months ago, countable assets. The amount of money an individual can have has increased from $2,000 up to $130,000. Now that's a dramatic change. So you can have all your exempt assets like your residence, doesn't count, $130,000 in the bank and qualify for Medi-Cal to pay all or most of the cost of nursing home care. If you're a couple and both need care, almost $200,000 can be retained while qualifying. Okay, so as if that's enough. Here, we're in California, liberal California. We want to do more all the time. Our legislature has taken an extraordinary step. In a couple of years, in a year and a half, there will be no limit on the number of assets you can have while qualifying for Medi-Cal. I mean, that's a remarkable development. This will be the only state in the country that allows that. So Mark inserted this phrase, Medi-Cal for billionaires. Well, yeah, that's going to be possible. So, is it feasible politically to be maintained? What about the economics of it? How is that going to work? Will there still be facilities and physicians who will accept Medi-Cal? Because if you accept Medi-Cal, you're paid less money and you have more paperwork. Many doctors won't accept Medi-Cal. Many nursing homes won't accept Medi-Cal. So, this sounds sort of good if you take a glance at it, more people, but As a practical matter, frankly, we're very worried about it. And we think that self-insuring or having private resources, perhaps through long-term care insurance, is still vitally important. Don't just say Medi-Cal and I'm done. I don't think that's the case. Okay. So what if you have too much money and you want to qualify for Medi-Cal? What can you do? First point is that we can put together plans to protect assets and make sure somebody qualifies for Medi-Cal. We can do that. Planning is key. What if you're single or you're married and one of you becomes incapacitated? This harkens back to what Mark said about the need for sophisticated estate planning documents. If a durable power of attorney is going to be relied upon for something like asset transfers or shifting assets to irrevocable trusts to achieve eligibility for Medi-Cal, the power of attorney has to be explicit in saying that. You can't check a box where it says estate planning and have that serve. You just can't do it. So everything these days is more sophisticated, more demanding. So you just have to make sure that you're taking all of the appropriate steps as you plant the seeds for future planning, because you just don't know what's going to be happening.
Yeah, and when Mike's referring to, these documents come into play if you have limited capacity or if you're sick, if you just can't manage your finances, if you can't take these steps on your own. That's where having the right documents is absolutely crucial. And when you need long-term care, chances are you might be a little bit limited. You might need your loved ones to step in. And that's why your documents have to be done right and they have to be up to date. Let's talk about special needs trust and the role they can play, just as one example of a planning tool we have.
This is, frankly, this is so interesting. Okay, so the scenario here, typically, as you know from our webinars, special needs trusts are typically established by parents who have a child or children who are disabled on the autism spectrum, bipolar, some diagnosis or problem that makes them unable to get a job and keep a job. And then they qualify for benefits. And parents set up a special needs trust for them. But here we're going to be a little bit creative in the use of special needs trusts. So let's assume parents want to think about eligibility for Medi-Cal for themselves. And they might transfer assets to them pursuant to a carefully constructed plan, being very attentive to many tax issues. You don't just do transfers. There's so many tax issues you have to be aware of. That's why this is very complicated. Okay, so mom and dad perhaps shift significant assets to one or more of their kids, and the kids theoretically will hold those assets for the protection of mom or dad. But what we so strongly recommend in such situations is that the kids don't just hold the money. What they do after some time goes by is they create a special needs trust for mom and dad, and then they shift money into it. And then even if the kids go bankrupt, pass away, whatever, there's money in a special needs trust to pay for anything that mom and dad need that is not covered by Medi-Cal or some other form of government benefit. So yeah, they're giving away their money, but if it's structured properly, that money can then be put into a safe harbor to take care of mom or dad. So it makes everybody feel better. It's prudent, it's logical, and good planning, making sure that everybody's going to be taken care of when there is a desire to protect assets.
Yeah, and this is an example of multi-generational planning. It's something that Mike and I co-authored some articles about. It's available at gilfix.com if you want to see those articles. But we think in multi-generational terms, right? So if you have kids, if you have grandkids, it's crucial to talk to the next generation. If you don't, well, then you need to have that team of friends or trusted individuals who you can include in your planning documents as well. But talk about this before crisis hits, because there's so many tools available. And we're going to transition now. This isn't about paying for long-term care. This is more about your home is an exempt asset when it comes to Medi-Cal eligibility, doesn't interfere with it. But we want to talk about preserving your home because we think this is just crucial. We just want to discuss a key recent change. If you've seen our other talks, we talk about this all the time, but it's a big deal. And so, Mike, do you want to just talk about Prop 19 and what it means for families? This is for future generations.
Sure. Those of us who are a little older, if we were fortunate, we bought our homes a long time ago. We benefited enormously from Prop 13, right? It took us back to very low assessed values and very low valuations and very low property taxes, increasing 2% a year, hardly at all. So we had a gift by the Jarvis-Gann Initiative, by Prop 13. Okay, then importantly came Prop 58. And it said that you could pass along your home to your kids, your residents, regardless of whether they lived in it. If it was your residence, no property tax increases. Another $1 million in assessed value. So you might have bought that cabin at Tahoe years ago for $200,000. Now it's worth $3 million. But because the assessed value is way under $1 million, it also passed along without a property tax increase. I mean, incredible. Then came Prop 19, became law in February of 2021. It is law today. It changes all of that. It eliminates the benefits of Prop 58. Okay, so it says that if you pass along your residence to your kid, there may be some level of protection. $1 million in assessed value is forgiven. So if you have $5,000 a year in property taxes and your home is worth $4 million, not rare around here, if your child makes the home his or her residence, $1 million is forgiven. So the new assessed value will be $3 million, right? $4 million minus $1 million. Still, property taxes will go to like $35,000 a year. So there's still a dramatic increase. If you have a cabin or rental properties, no exceptions whatsoever, complete reassessment. Property taxes will go from $3,000, $5,000, $8,000 a year to $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 a year, making it extremely difficult for the kids to retain property in the family. And most of us do want that to happen. Now, Medi-Cal. Okay, let's integrate the two for just a second. As Mark mentioned, I believe your home doesn't count as an asset when you're achieving eligibility for Medi-Cal. You want to keep it for future generations, your kids, your grandkids. You want to do something to make sure that it's going to be protected. Well, we have to integrate that thinking with long-term care thinking. How do you protect a home? How is all of that going to be integrated? And Mark, I think we did a recent webinar on this topic. So you reference that?
Look at the Gilfix Law YouTube channel. It's Preserving Low Property Taxes, the name of the talk. And we bring this up because so much of what we're talking about is how do you get great care and hold on to the family home and hold on to key assets. What can you do to avoid? Because selling your home while you're still around to pay for care triggers a lot of bad tax issues. We do not want you to do that. So if you go to all this trouble of planning ahead and you can save your home, be aware of this because this might cost your kids your home later. They may have to sell it because property taxes can go up by hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. And yeah, if you want to learn more, we have our webinar, Preserving Low Property Taxes. But most importantly, we have solutions for this. We've helped many families already to avoid these property tax increases. Mike, do you want to talk just a little bit about this? The focus of this talk isn't on this, but we have solutions if you want to save your house for future generations.
Well, again, it's not simple. There are countless, needless to say, rules. There's legislation that deals with how a property tax assessment is going to be triggered. If we're careful and sophisticated and do it over many, many, many months, it's a multi-step process. We can lock in the low property taxes for future generations. And frankly, we have to be sensitive to, we're focusing on Prop 19 on avoiding property tax increases, right? But depending on the nature of the transfer and how we structure it, does it have estate and gift tax implications? Well, yeah, it does, significant. We have to think about that. What about capital gains tax? If you just give it away and your kids take the house one way or another, they take your cost basis, right? If they ever sell, huge capital gains tax exposure. So can we have our cake and our cookies and the milk and eat it too? Can we protect the house from property tax increases? Can we minimize or eliminate estate tax exposure? Can we still capture a stepped-up basis so there can be a sale subsequently, give the kids the options? We can do that. I mean, It's not simple. It can be done. Multi-steps. Our tax attorney here, Francis Lepole, is our mastermind on all of this. Not simple, but it can be done. And you just have to think it through to protect assets for your family.
So if you have questions about this, if you're not sure how it would affect you, set a meeting with us. We can very quickly go through the issues with you. Once we just get some basic information, we can go through the problem and then the potential solutions. Or if it is a problem for you, some families, it's not. And we just want to circle back to this. We've talked about a lot of different issues. How do you pay for care? How do you preserve your house? How do you address tax and government benefits eligibility issues? I would just ask, does your financial plan address these long-term care issues? Does it address the cost of care? Is it integrated with your estate plan? Have you thought about these issues as you allocate your investments, as you think about your financial plan? Crucial to address this with your financial advisor if you have one. If you don't, I think it is a good idea to have one who recognizes these issues. And we are developing, because we've been asked about this for years. So we're starting now to develop some integrated legal and financial planning programs. We're launching them now. We're really excited about it. We think they can provide extraordinary value to families who are interested in integrating legal and financial planning, where one hand very much talks to the other on a regular basis to make sure everything is linked together. So talk to us if you're interested. If you don't have an advisor, you've been thinking about talking to someone, talk to us. We can discuss these new programs, or if you just want a fresh look at your financial plan, again, talk to us. We're working with some experts who really do get this in some really powerful ways. So Mike, any thoughts here? Any additional?
We have some great questions that I want to get to in a minute, but it's probably about 20 years ago when I concluded that there should be not a one-stop shopping center, but there needs to be integrated thinking. And we took some steps in this regard that just didn't pan out. And Mark, to Mark's credit, is really working hard to put that together now. If you think about it for just a second, it's overwhelmingly obvious. If one of your concerns is paying for the cost of long-term care and preserving assets for your kids, integrating those goals, it's different than just wanting to maximize my income or increase my assets. Of course, that's part of it, but yeah, you just have to be sensitive to reality, and it's different. It takes a different set of sensitivities, awareness of different products and investment strategies that make even more sense in light of the fact that we're all aging and most of us are going to need that kind of help. So I'm just delighted to see that Mark, not me, that Mark is carrying that forward and putting a lot of time and creative energy into it.
Yeah, and so I think we're actually going to wrap this up and get to just a couple questions in a moment. But I think one key point we want to make is you guys, by attending this and watching this, are way ahead of the game. Most people do not think about this. Most people's heads are in the sand, and then they face crises and they lose everything, or they don't get good care. We have some people who come to us too late. They don't have any assets, and there's not much we can do to really help them think this through or plan to protect anything. Time is short. Health is not a given. Things change, laws change. You might not be able to take steps in the future. Failure to act now could literally expose your estate to millions in long-term care costs or taxes. So talk to us, talk to a team, talk to advisors that really understand this and think about this day in, day out. And just some questions I would pose. Do you have an updated estate plan? When was the last time you addressed it? Does your plan address these long-term care asset protection issues? If you have documents that were done by non-specialists in this area, they're often missing key provisions and tools. You need to work with an expert in this area. Are the right people named in your documents? Have you talked to them about the potential steps they might have to take down the road and who they'd have to talk to and work with to do it right? Do you have an existing life insurance policy you've had for a long time that has some cash value? You might be able to trade that in for a policy that could cover some of the costs of long-term care or other investment categories. Are you interested in looking at new long-term care or life long-term care hybrid policies? Does your financial plan address these issues? Is it integrated with your estate plan? And have you addressed Prop 19 and property tax issues for your home if you want to preserve your home for your kids? So if the answer to any of these things is no, meet with us. We would love to get the chance to help you. For those of you who haven't worked with us yet, we're happy just to spend 15 minutes on the phone with you just to get to know you and make sure that we're a fit for you and you're a fit for us. So we're happy to set up complimentary initial 15-minute talks. But when you're ready to get started and you want to dive into this, set up a meeting with us. These are some of the most important documents you'll ever sign. This is some of the most important planning steps you'll ever take. Call our office at 650-493-8070 to set a planning meeting with us, with Mike, with me, with Nick Klingenberg, with Renee Conrad, one of our amazing estate planning attorneys. We all work together. So we all think about this together. You can go to our website, gilfix.com/my-needs. We have a little questionnaire. You can check boxes on areas you're interested in. So you can go there. You can also enter your contact information in the Q&A function, and we'll make sure that we reach out to you after this to set that meeting as well. So take action though, set that meeting with us so we can go through your legal issues. We can discuss integrated planning. We can discuss Prop 19 issues, and we can make sure that your documents empower your loved ones to deal with these issues. And we can talk through some of the issues step by step, because no two families are alike. No two situations are alike. We can help. Any thoughts from you, Mike, before we go to some questions?
No, I think you said it well. I just, it's so easy to put these things off. You're worried about fees. You're worried about it being complicated. Yeah, we understand that. We just urge you, even if you don't come to us, just to deal with these issues very directly. It's going to give you so much peace of mind. And
talk to your family about this. A lot of families don't want to discuss this. It's almost a subject that people don't want to touch. We need to talk about it. In fact, Dad, you and I need to have another fresh talk about this to make sure we're all on the same page here. But family discussions around this are so crucial. And you need to think in an integrated way. So we hope you got incredible value out of this. We hope you learned. Spread the word. Subscribe to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel. We're going to post this there. It should be there in the next week or two. Spread the word. Spread this talk. Subscribe to our channel. Like this video if you're watching on YouTube later. But contact us if we can be helpful. And we'd love to get the chance to serve your family and to serve you. So let's go to just a couple of questions before we officially.
So I'm ready with a couple. Simon makes a very good point, which is that if you go into a nursing home, it's 90% women. There is a dramatic difference, men versus women, when it comes to long-term care. Us guys, if we're married, fortunate enough to be married, our wives take care of us, they outlive us, we're cared for at home. Women end up in nursing homes dramatically more often. So that does affect your thinking about how do you plan for the cost of long-term care. We tend to die quicker, us guys. It's a reality. So how do you fine-tune your planning? What kind of a policy do you get? Point very well taken. And there are many ways in which you can do that kind of fine-tuning. Jen makes a point that I think is wrong. She understood that for Prop 19, to be able to use that $1 million exception, that you had to be physically living in the home when you pass away, and then your kid has to make it the residence. I don't think that's the case. You could be in a skilled nursing facility and still count your residence, your home as your residence. We really think that's going to that'll be safe for that limited exception. We are still waiting, by the way, for regulations and implementation guidelines from the Board of Equalization. Prop 19 is, some say, internally inconsistent. It's ambiguous. So we're still waiting for additional guidelines.
But the planning steps, if you take the planning steps that we can help with, we take those all out of the equation. We are different techniques where it doesn't matter if you're living in a house or if your kids live in the house after you're gone. That's the key. We can do it for multiple properties. Irene, thank you for the very nice note. We appreciate it. We want to provide great information. We also have a question about, can we share this webinar? We're going to send out links to everybody down the road. You can also, again, subscribe to the Gilfix Law YouTube channel, and there are ways you can watch this. And we're doing more and more webinars, all free, all for you just to learn. And feel free to spread the word, because this is an issue that, again, faces basically every family in America in one way or another. So we need to be aware, and we need to have these conversations.
Two more questions, by the way, that I see. One is somebody has $200,000 in an IRA, and the question is that going to interfere with eligibility for Medi-Cal? No. California is remarkable. You can have $5 million in an IRA or a 401k, and it doesn't count in determining eligibility. Now, it will affect something called share of cost. You have to report your income. Eligibility for Medi-Cal is exclusively a function of assets, not income. But after you become eligible, then they do look at your income, and you usually have to contribute a portion of it to the cost of care. But IRA money doesn't count. You don't have to get rid of it. It sits there fundamentally exempt. Second point is, somebody read that if you gave away any money within the last 60 months, you're ineligible. No, absolutely not. First of all, let's just say California has unique rules. With a carefully executed plan, you could give away hundreds of thousands of dollars and be eligible for Medi-Cal in a couple of months. We guarantee you.
If you do it right.
So,
and if you work with experts. So I'd say, I think that's a good note on which to close. So don't try this all at home. Build that team of thought partners. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher. Your care is crucial. And this is not just about preserving assets for the next generation. Of course, this is about preserving assets to provide you with the best possible care, so you get to live the way that you want for the rest of your life, and to get the right type of care, and so your family isn't frantically looking for solutions without many options. So let's all work together. Again, we'd love to get the chance to serve you. If you're an existing client, hey, let's set a review meeting. Let's go through your issues. Things change over time. Let's make sure your plan is up to date. Let's make sure that your financial plan and your insurance plan is integrated with your legal plan. And let's make sure that all of our loved ones can thrive as long as we're all around, because the world is crazy. Let's control what we can control, and it'd be our privilege to help you and your family. So thank you for those who entered your information. We'll reach out to you for a meeting. Gilfix.com, 650-493-8070. We're pretty easy to find online, but contact us. Let's set those meetings. And I hope everybody got a lot out of this. I hope everybody's staying safe, sane, and healthy, as my mom likes to say. Mike, any final words before we wrap this up?
Look, that's a great closing. You know, we wish everybody well. We're here to help.
All right. Well, take care, everyone. We hope to chat with you soon. Keep an eye on our channel for more webinars. Thank you.
All right.